Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards.
That was President Biden last night, standing in front of a dramatically lit Independence Hall in Philadelphia. He's declaring democracy is under assault by former President Trump and the millions of Americans who voted for him. Joining me now is Oklahoma Congressman Kevin Hern. He's a member of the Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, good morning to you, and great to have you with us this morning. I want to get your take on this because the president essentially is attacking half of the country, grouping them into this extreme basket of MAGA Republicans. Most people would just say, I'm not even sure what that exactly is. And he's also accusing them of threatening democracy. Your take on this?
Well, I don't think there's any question. First of all, thanks for having me. I don't think there's any question. Joe Biden has done more to erode democracy and faith in our institutions after last night's speech than we ever thought possible. We all remember he campaigned on his ability to unify the country, that's what he was great at after 50 years in politics. And last night, what we saw, as you just stated, he just said that half of Americans, everyone that voted for Donald Trump, had no place in this country, that we're all fascists. And, you know, if we have a strong two-party system, which is how our founders envisioned us and how we should be working together, and he did more to divide us last night than ever.
You know, you stand back and look at this speech and think about the midterms and what the administration was trying to do with positioning. It's interesting to me because what's happened with President Trump recently, the FBI raid, et cetera, it's rallied the base. I imagine that his base sees a speech like this and you know, could be turned off by it, to put it mildly.
Well, if you think about the last time we saw this kind of division in our country, yeah, I think you'd have to go all the way back to prior to the Civil War, where we had, you know, the atrocities that were going on then and really did divide our country. Some would argue that we're marching in that direction now. But when you look at what they want us to join, we have to also remember that the Democrats have the White House, the Senate, and the House Representatives. And what do they do with this power? They double the size of the IRS so they can shake down the American people. They go out and have the DOJ and the FBI target political opponents. They call our parents domestic terrorists because they want to get gender identification and critical race theory out of the classrooms. And then you look at our southern border. This party has become the party of death when it comes to the number of Americans who have died from fentanyl overdose and the number of illegal immigrants who have died crossing the border. And this is their leadership. This is insane to think that if we want to push back on that, meaning the Republican Party, 75 million Americans want to push back on that somehow we're anti-American, that we're fascist, and this has got to stop.
And I will add to that over $4 trillion in reckless spending. That's put the economy in an unstable position right now. Todd?
To Jackie's point on midterm momentum, Congressman, if you look at the polls in July and August, they were not favorable to Republicans when it comes to the House of Representatives. Yes, many of them, most of them, if not all of them, still show Republicans holding on to the House. But that wave has definitely been feared that it could turn into more of a trickle if you are a Republican. I think Republicans were given two gifts in recent weeks. One, the student loan bailout that Democrats and Republicans and the heartland does not seem to like. The second gift was this speech. How do you, as a campaigning Republican, take this gift given to you by Joe Biden, these two gifts, and use it to campaign in the next 2 months?
Well, it started last night for me. I was speaking to some 700 people in my district, and we talked about the fact that what this president has done is taking and giving away money on the backs of hardworking farmers and ranchers and manufacturers and people that are out every day with a job paying their bills, and with one fell swoop of a pen, which is clearly unconstitutional, even according to Nancy Pelosi just last year, that this president has had the audacity to go out and say, I don't need Congress anymore. I can both do executive orders and spend money just like it's no tomorrow. And that's what we're seeing right now is that the parties, both parties, Democrats and Republicans, are running from this president. If you look last night, you didn't see the Senate candidate Fetterman standing there with the president in his own state. You know, that's something that people should know. The Democrats are running from this. Tim Ryan, who is running for Senate in Ohio, has been running from this. Every Democrat that's been out there campaigning is running from what this president is doing. And we need to remind ourselves that, again, they have all the power, all the levers of government. to do what they want to do. And he spoke about we the people 10 times at least last night. And we the people is I, Joe Biden.
Right.
And so when you look at that, we have got to get back to what we know and work together to move this country forward.
And to expand on what you're saying on this concept of I, Joe Biden, and executive power, the Republican attorneys general are considering lawsuits against President Biden to block his student loan bailout. Congressman, you know, that spending, the notion is that spending in this country is supposed to be approved by Congress, not by the president.
Well, again, when you look at what Nancy Pelosi has done the last 4 years that I've been in Congress, is she's circumvented all the committees of any jurisdiction on most everything. The bills have been written in her office. She has demonstrated and led the pathway for President Biden to do what he's doing. She has shown a total disregard for having restraint on spending. You know, we've spent some $12 trillion through Democrat rule in the last 4 years. It's just insane, almost doubling our debt since it just stopped being in Congress. And for them to talk about this Inflation Reduction Act, this is a Green New Deal bill repackaged to be a Build Back Broke plan repackaged to now be an inflation reduction plan, which their own administration says it's not going to lower inflation.
Right, and they lie and they call it an Inflation Reduction Act. I always put the so-called in front of it so people really understand this has nothing to do with reducing inflation.